for December 12th, 2011 to order at 5 p.m. And before we get into the agenda and anything else, I have a presentation for Councillor Foster.
Where's your sword?
You weren't at the Christmas party on Saturday night, and your name came up for Long Service Award. So on behalf of the city, I'd like to present you with your 5-year award and thank you for your contribution to the city. And they read all kinds of nice things about you there too.
Did?
So, yeah,
did anybody record it? They told stories about
thank
you.
We were invited. Thanks, Ian. All right, the agenda is before us. Any additions, supplementary items? Thank you. Councillor Kite?
I move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? So carried. The minutes for November 28th, 2011, regular meeting are there. Any errors or omissions? Councillor Connor?
I would move that we adopt the minutes as presented.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? So carried. That takes us down to information council mailbox. I believe there's 8 items there. Councillor Foster?
Move that we receive those as information.
Thank you very much. Any discussion, questions, comments? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right. Takes us to the business part. We have a presentation from a citizen group with regards to the Anna Maria Coffee Bar. Darlene, come on up front. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you.
We've got Brenda to show you the microphone there, and we call these our cheap seats.
These?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
So if I could get you to just come on up and use the mic and introduce yourself.
When this is red, it's on, and you can just turn it off when you don't want to.
Excellent. And the floor is yours.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you, Mayor Christie and councillors. My name is Darlene Knight. I and my friends, I'm sure does everyone have a copy of my letter? Okay, I'm just doing a little brief talk about the letter, primarily. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for allowing us to come and for responding so quickly to the letter. We were perhaps a little bit late. We were having coffee one morning and all of a sudden heard that December 23rd, wow, the coffee bar is closing. And so we thought we should do something, so I wrote the little letter, the girls signed it, and here we are. The city of Lacombe has created a wonderful facility, the LMC, encompassing the library, meeting rooms, party rooms, and Anna Maria's to gather. I am a patron of the library and Anna Maria's, and never come in without thinking, wow, what a wonderful, warm, friendly place to walk into. You know, it's great. You can look at the art on the walls, you can go to the library, you can come and have coffee with your friends. You can bring your out-of-town friends who are very, very excited, our friends, about what a wonderful facility we have in Lacombe. I just think I'd be very sad if this closes and leaves the vacant room with a nice fireplace, really. I understand it's in a money-losing situation, but as I stated in my letter, is everything great about Lacombe, in Lacombe, about profit? So that's my little blurb. Alma Camlaw has written a little letter that I'm going to read on behalf of her senior group. We are kind of a senior group, but they're a senior group, I'm going to call them. Anyway, if any of you know Alma, she's young too. And this is on behalf of her and her friends. We, as seniors, do appreciate Anna Maria's as a clean, friendly atmosphere to gather for coffee and visiting. It is so easily accessible for the handicapped, and our suggestion would be to have it as a coffee and snack bar. This would cut the cost of wages and food considerably. We have many other food outlets that provide meals. Yes, we have the arena, outdoor rinks, swimming pool, ball diamonds, playgrounds, parks, and walking trails that do cater to our younger generation. But we are in our golden years, and taxpayers trust that we will not be forgotten. Thank you. And this is Alice. And Jenny Linkletter has something to say as well. So I'm going to pass this over to her.
Did you want to just stay up front there too, Darlene?
Oh, sure.
Just questions?
Oh, sure.
Just move the mic.
Okay.
Welcome, Jenny.
Thank you. Mayor Christie and councillors, I will be repetitious because I'm here to support keeping the Fireside Lounge and Anna Maria's Coffee Bar in operation as well, in some capacity. And my observation as being a patron there has shown me that many times there's young mothers who come in with babies and carriers and toddlers and strollers, which is very convenient for them. There's young students there. We've seen them being tutored there. People from the workforce, young retirees as ourselves, and of course our senior citizen population. It's a great and impromptu bonding spot for all the ages, and some of us that don't have grandchildren around, etc., we can intermix with that. We can observe them. It's a great place, and it has a great warmth and ambience. As a taxpayer for 40 years, I'm happy to support a facility that does not target just one age group. My understanding is that you're trying, you have 4 options, and you are trying to have someone come in as a private contractor. My suggestion is, if you're going to do that, you need to give them a real break on their rent so that they can maybe get their feet under them. But if that's not going to work, I strongly suggest that you take your option 2 and option 4, which is 2 is your vending machines, option 4 is to rent it out for facilities like anniversaries, weddings, showers. Keep your rate reasonable. I realize our rates at the LMC have been too low for too long, but I think that it's just a beautiful room and we need to utilize it to the best that we can. And it would be a shame because I consider it the heartbeat of our new city core, and it could come to an untimely demise if we close the doors. Thank you.
Thank you. Have you ladies got anything further for the presentation?
No, I've been hit.
Any questions? Good discussion, councillors. Councillor Creasy, then Councillor Foster, Councillor Kite.
Get the mic working, I won't even. Thank you all for coming. I guess the question and the comment, the first one would be your question for you, is if you have any creative ideas how we might go about securing an individual to spearhead looking after this venture for us. And I guess second off, a comment that this was never intended to be closed, for us to close the facility. It was a change in management from the municipality to private enterprise. So I don't think anyone here would like to see the operation closed. So just a fact there that I hope that you all appreciate, that it was not aimed at any particular group, seniors or otherwise. It was strictly financial.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah, we understand that.
So
But
we're in the process of securing some ideas from the public at large, and I expect that our administration will go into that a little later, but certainly if you have any or know anybody that's interested in it, we'd certainly love to hear from you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Foster.
Well, as Councillor Creasy has indicated, thank you guys for coming, and he basically said what I was gonna ask, but I just wondered whether, because there was a separation of the senior and the younger seniors, whether the younger seniors would have a ad hoc committee that would like to look after the facility for us. And I don't think the idea is to charge even rent. I think if we could come to some agreement that that would look after some percentage of the profits. I mean, any kind of suggestions from the community is certainly going to be welcome. So, and sometimes these type of groups can look after things like this quite nicely. I know that I come from a small community that did exactly that for a number of things, so it does work well. But as the younger seniors get older, we have to recruit some younger seniors.
Councillor Kite.
My comments were also taken by Councillor Creasy already. I just wanted to thank you for coming. It's very refreshing to hear what the taxpayers are willing to support. We often hear what they are not willing to support, and so I very much appreciate the effort you made to bring your presentation to us.
Thank you so much, ladies, for coming out tonight. Thank you for the letter. Like you said, we don't often hear from happy people soon enough. So it was great to have you here tonight, and just let us know what some taxpayers are definitely willing to support. So we'll take that into consideration.
We'll be sending you a letter with after coffee tomorrow.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
for
Thank you very,
listening
very
to
much.
our concerns.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think do we need a motion to accept this as information? Absolutely. Councillor Kite?
I'll move that we accept the closure of Anna Marie Coffee Bar's presentation as information.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. So carried. All right, we get into the budget end of things. Norma?
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I will commence the presentation with the 2012 operating budget for the City of Lacombe. I'd like to bring to Council's attention the 2012 operating budget before you this evening represents a 3% tax increase, and it identifies a surplus of $25,026. There are a number of highlights that were addressed in the memorandum within the agenda package that was circulated to both Council and the public. And I won't go over those highlights in details, but I will mention that items such as the additional property tax revenues resulting from assessment growth were identified. Additional staffing resources required to support this budget were also identified. There was a change in terms of the employee benefits plan, and that's identified as a highlight. And then wage settlements are also mentioned in the memorandum. We also went on to identify the funding that's being provided to the community organizations who requested support from Council. So that is itemized in detail for you. And I'd also like to mention that there is no change to service levels from 2011, with the exception of the closure of Anna Maria's Coffee Bar, which of course will no longer be operated by the municipality. Having said that, certainly the intent is to go out to RFP and determine if there's interest from a private operator for that facility. There were changes in terms of the utility rate structure, and that has been an overview of that has been provided for you. And finally, just some of the initiatives that will be undertaken in 2012 were mentioned. Just quickly go through those. The Heart of Town Area Redevelopment Plan, the Municipal Sustainability Plan, the implementation of our rebranding strategy. We will introduce storm sewer flushing in 2012, and that, of course, will be part of our maintenance program. Business development workshops will be brought forward. A strategic partnership policy will be introduced for Council's consideration. Recreation and culture open spaces plan updates will occur, and an introduction of a corporate communications plan will also occur. I just before I come to the recommendation for council, I wanted to highlight the key messaging from the 2012 budget, and the key messaging that we bring forward at this time. The first being, our future is in responsible financial management. Budget increases reflect inflationary pressures and a slowdown in terms of growth, assessment growth. Our second key message, our focus is on people. Movement to a full staffing complement responds to maintaining current service levels for the public. And our third key message being addressing present, future, and emergent infrastructure needs ensures long-term viability for the municipality. And under this key message, I highlight a new utility rate structure reflects actual costs and a user pay system. And secondly, storm and wastewater projects will help mitigate reoccurring flood risks in the future. With that, Mayor Christie, I would like to recommend that the City of Lacombe's 2012 operating budget with total revenues of $25,504,688 and total expenses of $25,478,107 for an operating surplus of $26,581 be approved as presented.
Thank you. Councilor Rempel?
I'd like to make a motion that the City of Lacombe's 2012 operating budget with total revenues of $25,504,680 and total expense of $25,478,107 for an operating surplus of $26,581 be approved as presented.
Thank you. Discussion. Councilor Foster?
Sorry about that. Thanks, Mayor Christie. I didn't see in here, and thank you very much for the caption of everything. What I was looking for was the impact between the 3.5% that we had originally proposed and the 3%. It's at that point in time, in my rough calculation, that's a $45,000 difference in the 0.5%. Plus profit of another $25,000, so there's $70,000 difference of what we could have. So I guess all I was looking for was, okay, so here was the 3.5% what we proposed, and now we're going to 3%. What was cut? Because I can't see that with this. Where are we at?
Norma?
Thank you, Mayor Christie. In terms of the difference, certainly we went back and we did some recalculation around benefits, and that accounted for items. Is there anything else that the finance manager or director of corporate services wishes to mention?
Brenda?
There was also the reduction in the operating surplus from the last meeting of council. It was presented at around 50,000, and so that was reduced to 25,000 in addition to the benefits that Norma had already mentioned.
So those two items basically make up for the, okay. I guess just for the, for the future, I would love to see that, just because we had lots of discussion on where we're at and what's the impact, and we had lots of discussion about where would we be if we were at 5%, 4%, those kind of things. So I think coming down to this 3%, I mean, I'm very, very pleased that we were able to knock it down by that extra 0.5%, but I didn't want to have it at the expense of something that we weren't aware of.
Thank you, Mayor Christie, to Councillor Foster. Certainly, there was nothing deleted from the budget that had been discussed with council over the last 6 weeks, and it was those two items that accounted for that difference.
Councillor Creasy?
Thanks, Mayor Christie. One item I wanted a little discussion on was the Lacombe Fund Club. See that their 2012 funding has increased to $10,000 from $8,500, and I think capital-wise, it got an extra $40,000, give or take, for some work that they plan on doing there. And then also, I wanted to see how that fit in with the return of the taxes that are generated from the property there. Is that over and above those other two items, or is this part of it?
To Councillor Creasy, first of all, in regard to the contribution of taxes, the amount collected in taxes exceeds the 10,000 that is paid to the Flying Club, and hence the increase from $8,500 in 2011 to 10,000 in 2012. We're getting closer to that total tax amount that's collected from that facility. So that's the rationale behind that increase. Your second question, I believe, pertaining to capita, and at 30. Okay.
So it is, that is basically put the return of that money that is the 10,000.
That's correct, Councillor Creasy. The return of taxes, yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion, questions? Councillor Foster?
Thanks, Mayor Christie. I guess the silence in the room is overwhelming with all the work that we've done on this. It boils down to a quick vote, but I just want to say I really appreciate all the work that the administration has done, as well as all the councillors with all the discussion, because I think in all the years that I've been here, and I can attest, I got that pin to tell you that I've been here for a while, we've had more discussion on everything possible, and so we brought a lot of good things to play. So this is the culmination of it all, and I'm very happy to see that we can get to that 3%. So
thank you. Norma?
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I just want to reiterate that certainly there's been a lot of discussion over the last 6 weeks in terms of this budget, and I believe that Council's had every opportunity for input and to question administration in regards to what's before you this evening. So there's certainly nothing new that you haven't discussed previously, and I don't want the lack of discussion to appear as though Council is not well advised and informed. That's certainly not the case.
Well, I think I can speak for all of council in the room here. I think in the last 6 weeks, we've all woken up at least once with screaming budget and seeing numbers flying through our heads. I too just want to say thank you to administration and even filter it right down to the department heads and all involved in the budget process. It takes a whole lot of people to come to the table and make this all happen. And I mean, I think through the whole thing, we get probably one of the easiest jobs of it. We just keeps coming back before us, and we get to discuss it, send it back, and so I just want to thank everybody involved with it, the department heads, administration. Thank you so much, financial department. It's a whole lot of work, and thank you for getting this done. Councillor Kite?
I just wanted to comment, when Norma said that our service levels have not changed, I would like to say that they actually have improved, even though we are still at the same service levels. But due to the different way that the departments are managed and supervised, and the accountabilities that are in place, I think that we are getting better service.
Thank you. Norma?
Thank you, Mayor Christie. Just one final accolade, if I may. Certainly our financial services manager was instrumental in preparing the operating budget, so I want to recognize her for that and to say thank you very much for all of her hard work over these last probably 10 weeks.
Councillor Connick, then Councillor Creasy.
I would just like to echo the feel-good comments coming around the table right now. But, I know last year's budget as a rookie councillor was just kind of thrown in our lap, and it was kind of an uncomfortable process for myself. But this year, it's been a way better process, a lot more paper, a lot more information, and it's been great. I mean, I think there's a few things we can improve for next year yet, but overall, yeah, it's been a really good process. Thank you.
Councillor Creasy.
Thanks, Mayor Christie. As far as the operational budget goes, I think that people in general are fairly pleased with the outcome. I think one important thing to note that we're adding one senior level management position as well as 2 operator positions, which are not inexpensive in themselves and for us to absorb those into the budget and see this kind of an increase, I think it is a job well done myself.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion or questions? There's a motion on the floor. All those in favor? Carried. 2012 operational budget. Norma?
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I'd just like to turn it over to our Director of Corporate Services, Michael Minchin, to go through the 2012 capital budget at this time. He has certainly expended a great deal of time in compiling this budget, and I recognize him for that.
Michael?
Thank you, Mayor Christie. Again, before you is the latest draft of 2012 capital budget. The only change from the last council meeting was the reduction of a new half-ton truck. The funding for that was supposed to come out of operations, but that had long since been removed, and therefore there was no funding for that vehicle in capital. So that's the only change you'll see in this version from the version you saw a week ago. So with regards to the capital project, or capital budget itself, again, some highlights. This is a rather large budget. It's 25 million, but over half of that, or almost half of that, is related to the final leg of the Highway 2A upgrade. The two other main areas, of course, is $3.6 million in stormwater and wastewater capacity expansions, both along 45th Street and as well as the force main from the northeast lift station to Lagoon. A couple of other areas that we're focusing on this year, of course, we're still going to maintain our annual street improvement program, so we'll be doing a combined $1.1 million in that area. The street light, or traffic lights at C&E and Highway 12 is going to be the first year of several years of traffic lights you'll be seeing in the annual capital budgets. We've got about 3 other major intersections that require the same, if not more, investment. The Northwest Rec area soccer fields will also be starting to take shape in 2012 as well. And we're also doing over $1 million between fleet and equipment, our annual replacement programs for both of those. And then finally, of course, we've included a rough estimate for servicing the Legacy Point, the residential subdivision. At this point, it is an estimate as we go through the process of developing the outline plan and final engineering servicing studies. How that ends up getting funded, of course, council will still have to make decisions on that. It is identified as short-term borrowing, but you will still be required to pass outline plans, long-term borrower, debenture borrowing, or short-term borrowing, depending on how that's ultimately funded. As well as depending on what type of contract services are required to carry out the actual project itself. So we are looking for approval of the 2012 capital budget tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Kite?
I move that council approve the City of Lacombe 2012 capital budget with total expenditures of $25,941,818 with matching funding for sources be approved as presented.
Thank you. Discussion. Councillor Connick, then Councillor Creasy.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I guess my question is just having to do with the, I got a couple of questions with the Legacy Point residential subdivision. I too was under the impression that we weren't going to pay any money to develop this, or we were going to try and find somebody to do that development for us. Is that still a plan, or have we tried to find somebody and haven't been able to, or is it we just decided that we're going to pay to put all these services in?
To Councillor Connick, the intent is that we move forward with CUC in terms of defining an outline plan for this development. That process is underway. It's not complete. We also have to finalize an agreement with CUC in terms of this development. Now, we have certain contractual obligations that we have to fulfill, and we will endeavor to do so. It's felt that at this time CUC has asked to be involved in the development of the outline plan and the overall design, and in order to facilitate that, we would like to move forward with, first of all, tendering the underground services, which is presented to you in the 2012 capital budget. We will then determine how we'll proceed with lot sales and the other services required to complete the development of this subdivision. So that's the process that is underway, and I'm hoping that answered your question in terms of the intent.
No, and I understand the process, that's all very clear to me, but I just thought at one point within that process, we were going to try and find somebody to do that development costs for us. And it seems to me now that we're doing it ourselves, we're doing it ourselves. That's the impression I was under at any rate. I could be wrong. The other question I have is the 4.3, will we be able to recoup that totally? Like, is there still a plan to do the first time home buyers plan, or is there still a plan to give these lots at a reduced rate? Because if that's the case, then I'm guessing we won't recoup the full 4.3 then, will we? So I'm just wondering if that's going to happen.
To Councillor Connick, certainly part of the process is to determine lot sale prices, and the intent is to fully recoup any monies expended on this development. Insofar as your question around the first time homeowners program, whether or not that will continue and what form that will continue, that question remains unanswered today. We need to have that discussion with CUC as we move forward on this development, but certainly there is every intent to recoup all monies invested.
Okay, thank you. That was my, I mean, if we're going to undertake to do this, as long as we can get all that money back, that's, I'm hoping that we're not going to, try and give deals to first-time homeowners and all that. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Creasy?
On that same subject, it's been almost a year since we discussed it in depth, and I was flat out told by you, Norma, that we were not getting into the development business, and that we were going to undertake this privately. Then all of a sudden it shows up in the budget package here, and I don't understand where the room to misinterpret came in. I thought that we were doing the engineering, the outline plan, and that was it. We were gonna see that the phase 1 of the original agreement was taken care of. We fulfilled our obligations. I just, as I said, I was at a bit of shock last week when we or last meeting when we first looked at this. So I went back and looked at some of my notes, and I wasn't mistaken. So I really failed to see how us doing the underground work has in any way has anything to do with the CUC. Whether we do it or it goes private, like it was originally intended to.
To Councillor Creasy, certainly in regard to your comments in terms of performing the work by a private contractor, that's always been the intent, that we would not internally attempt to do any of this work. It would always be tendered out. So I believe that may have been misunderstood or misinterpreted as meaning that everything will be done privately. So there was always the intent or the need for the city and the CUC to remain at the table and to work through the outline plan, as the development in terms of how it will proceed. We also have many details that are right now are left unfinished, like lot pricing, and we also have to go through the subdivision process. So I think there may have been some misunderstanding in terms of the whole meaning or concept around private. The intent was that we would never use internal resources to do any of the development on site. That would always be done by private contract.
Thank you for that. I mean, I don't think that anybody ever expected Public Works to do the construction work. They got their hands full looking after what they do. I mean, I don't think that was ever the issue. I would suggest that subcontracting and developing are not interchangeable terms. To say that we're not gonna develop means we're not gonna develop. Of course it was gonna be subbed out, whoever chooses to develop it. But by us putting this money into the budget, we are in fact the developers. It's our money at risk, that makes us the developers. I don't know how much simpler it can get than that.
Certainly that's absolutely correct, Councillor Creasy, and I believe that, and I can't speak to the agreement because the agreement has not been finalized between the City of Lacombe and CUC. However, I believe that the CUC has always had an expectation that they would be at the table and having the ability to make decisions on this development.
Councillor Foster?
Thanks, Mayor Christie. I'd like to talk about the legacy point, but before I do that, I just have a question, and I'm trying to find it. Michael, maybe you can help me. The airport, and I unfortunately wasn't here the night that the airport people made their presentation, but I had been out with the executive and a number of members a couple of times, way before they ever came with this presentation, and I see that we've got the building itself, the terminal, as part of the thing, without any of the initial need that was told to me very clearly that it was to be paving of the aprons and the taxiways so that they could increase their traffic flow, and that the building itself was kind of second, third priority, and now I see that there's nothing in the other part. Maybe you can kind of help me out there.
Mike?
Through to Councillor Foster, the presentation made by the executive of the airport Flying Club did indicate that the building was their #1 priority. They did identify 3 or 4 areas. Runway, taxiway was one. Runway, of course, has been on the list, as well as fuel tanks. Of course, we've had some, a couple of those items are safety related issues, and certainly the city's concerned about anything identified that might be a safety issue, but Flying Club did identify the building as their #1 priority.
No.
Just further to those comments, the other aspect, of course, is that they have secured a grant to upgrade the building, and that grant is being utilized to offset the majority of the costs of that undertaking.
Thank you. It was interesting because their initial conversations with me were of that other. So I would like to talk about the legacy point as well. And of course I've been on that, or had been on that initial committee, and we've had a lot of discussion regarding this process. I guess what happens sometimes is we hear what we want to hear, or we don't hear what we don't want to hear, and for my understanding of that process was very clear that we weren't going to get what I really wanted to see, which was the full development, because of economics, because of a whole bunch of other things. But we had an agreement, and that agreement said that we had to perform at some level, and we negotiated over quite a lengthy time before we came up with this small portion. And so now we're still, as I hear Norma saying, we're still trying to negotiate with CUC, even though they agreed with that smaller component, as I understand it, so that we were going to fulfill honor that agreement to some degree. And so that, I think, is where we're at. As far as, I think sometimes we development and whatever, and I'm not disagreeing with what Councillor Creasy is saying, but I think, from the very offset, there's been very strong opinions on both sides of this discussion, so.
Councillor Rempel?
I just want to comment on Legacy Point too as well. I wasn't as surprised as Grant was last meeting, because for me, and maybe there is some confusion out there, for me, even though I got voted into council when this plan had already started, it was closer to the end where I was there, but I fully supported it throughout the whole thing. When I was questioned on this today, I wasn't surprised by the numbers, because my understanding was that the agreement we had with CUC, we did have to go ahead with something. Obviously, they would have liked to see the whole thing. We obviously negotiated with them to do a small part of it, like Ian has said, and so when I was questioned on this, I had to actually go home today and just look through some of my notes as well. And my understanding, after I read a bit and looked at some stuff, yes, we said we weren't going to develop it, and I think there was some confusion around that. But I had always understood that we were going to be putting services in from the get-go. So for me, when I looked at that, I guess I was going, well, we're not, are we developing the whole thing? Are we, doing the thing ourselves, or what part are we doing? And after looking back, I agree with what we have here now, because I think we have to fulfill our agreement with CUC, and we have to be part of that process, as we said we would.
Councillor Kite?
I remember very clearly when President of CUC came to council requesting that we move forward with this process. And after that, there were several discussions and meetings with our administration and him, and to those powers that be, to decide what it would look like. And we as council decided that since we and they felt that we were obligated legally to do something, that this was the size of a project that we would agree to do. And I am fine with that because of the discussions that we had before.
I'd just like to confirm with council that at this time, as I mentioned, there are a number of details that have yet to be worked out with CUC. Certainly we have come to agreements in terms of the size of area that we'd like to move forward on. However, as I mentioned, outline plans are unfinished. We feel that it's necessary that we move forward with the servicing of the site if this is going to occur, and CUC has asked that we move forward on a timely basis. In terms of after the servicing, I can't comment tonight on how we might proceed, whether this will be contracted out from that point thereafter. Those discussions or those decisions have to be made collectively with CUC as we progress through this project.
Councillor Creasy, then Councillor Connick.
I guess, thanks, Mayor Christie. I guess given that those negotiations are still ongoing, and we don't know what it'll look like, I would suggest that we remove this item from the budget and make provisions to add it in if in fact it is needed, given that it's taken the CUC to come to the table this long, and we don't seem to be making much progress, in my opinion. It would appear to me that they're not particularly engaged in the process or want to see it go through either, as do not a lot of us. So I would like to make that recommendation that we remove this item from the capital budget at this time.
At this, thank you, Mayor Christie, to Councillor Creasy. At this particular juncture, there is an effort to finalize the agreement, Councillor Creasy, and that agreement would permit this to proceed as it's presented to you this evening, with the servicing proceeding in 2012. Certainly, if you wanted to make that recommendation in the form of a motion, that's and I would ask that the Mayor and Council consider that as a motion.
That would have to be a motion to amend the original motion, is what it will have to be. And then we'll have to vote on the amendment and go from there. Would you like to make that motion?
Thanks, Mayor. I would like to make that motion that we amend the motion before us with the exclusion of the development monies in the sum of 4.3 plus or minus million from the budget.
All right, discussion on the amendment. Councillor Foster, then Councillor Kite.
I was just gonna say, thank you, Mayor Christie. I would like to have, if at all possible, all the full discussion of this topic before we make any amendment, voting.
Well, this is discussion on the motion for amendment.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Councillor Kite?
If I understand the budgeting process correctly, we don't have to spend all the money we have in the budget. Is that not right?
In terms of the dollars budgeted in 2012 for Legacy Point, those dollars are required to undertake the servicing of that site. Is that the question?
No, that's not what I meant. I'm meaning in the past we have had monies put aside for Legacy Point and we have not used those funds. And so to take the money out now and then to put it back in, or to leave it and not use it, is the same thing, in my opinion. So I don't support the amendment.
Councillor Kite?
I don't know if this is speaking so much to the amendment, but, well, again, I just want to reiterate the whole confusion. I understand, we all agreed, yeah, to proceed with phase one. We all agreed that CUC was going to be involved. I understand all that. My only confusion stems from the actual development costs. And I understood that we were going to try and find a developer to bear those costs, not us. That's my confusion. We were going to try and find somebody to do that, so we didn't have to actually understand we were going to do an outline plan and all that. But then we were going to try and find somebody to partner with to do the actual development costs, to bear those costs, and they would then in turn. But that's my confusion with this whole money set aside. I get it, if we're not going to find somebody, yeah, then of course we've got to do that. But that was my initial confusion. Thank you.
Councillor Foster?
Thanks, Mayor Christie. I guess in respect to the amendment, I don't support it simply because we've made a commitment. We are legally bound to make this commitment, and we certainly have tried to get developers to come forth and do this project. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think we've ever had anyone come back to us and tell us that they would love to take this thing on, even though they all tell us that the feedback I have is that we shouldn't be doing it. Where are they in this process? Because they certainly had the opportunity many, many times to take it on. And we need the property. We need some residential development.
Councillor Rempel and Councillor Creasy.
Speaking to the amendment, if for whatever reason we didn't spend this 4.294 million, just because it's in the budget doesn't mean we have to spend it, correct?
That's correct, Councillor.
Okay. So, if we leave it in there and don't spend it, we're fine. If we don't put it in there and have to proceed with the development, how do we go about adding that to the budget for 2012?
To Councillor Rempel, the process would be that should the monies be required, administration would come forward to council and indicate that the monies are required and ask for council approval to expend that amount of money.
So which I guess I'm just trying to find the easiest way. If all of a sudden we had a developer that said, hey, you know what, I wanna work with the city and with CUC, and I wanna come in and do the services, and I wanna split that money, that's still something that we could even do, is that correct as well?
To Councilor Renfro, at this time, we're not making unilateral decisions. Certainly CUC needs to be involved, and so I wouldn't like to answer that on their behalf. But certainly as a city, we're open to, if people wish to approach us and have discussion around this development, we're certainly open to that, yes.
And I thank you that you wouldn't answer that question fully for me on their behalf. I was just throwing it out there for discussion, because I think that the amount of talk we've had about this and the amount of people that, I've talked to that are in favor of it, and the ones that aren't, I think that we have to look at all avenues, and I think that if there's developers out there that are very interested in this and know we're talking to CUC, I think it is something that they could approach us and say, how do I get a crack at this? So I just want to make sure that avenue is open. Thank you.
Councillor Creasy?
Thanks, Mayor Christie. I guess that was going to be my point, was that to counter the fact that we don't have to spend money that's in the budget, money that's in the budget we don't have to put there that isn't going to be spent either. We have ways and means of adding money to the budget through special resolutions throughout the year. And for that reason, I stand by my original amendment.
Any further discussion to the amendment of the original motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment to the original motion? Thank you. Opposed? Not carried. Thank you. So back to the original motion that is on the table. Any further discussion? Councillor Kite?
I believe that I was under the impression or understanding, same as Councillor Connick, that we were going to have somebody else do the development. And so I would very much like us to have that as part of the conversation when we talk with CUC, just echoing Councillor Rempel's comments just now. I specifically remember that, and if the three of us were misunderstanding, then that was a big misunderstanding.
To Councillor Kite, certainly we will bring that to the attention of CUC as we proceed with these negotiations and dialogue, yes.
Councillor Creasy?
Just a question, I want to make sure that everyone understood the previous amendment of the motion, then, with that kind of a question there from Councillor Kite. If in fact, if we were going to have someone else do the development, why are we putting money in the budget to do the underground work? It's just absolutely diametrically opposite to the idea. I don't understand.
I look back into some notes and attendance at council meetings. I didn't see anybody not present at discussions with regards to this. This agreement has always been between the city of Lacombe and CUC College. There has never, ever been a third party at the table, i.e. a developer, to share or bear any of these costs, to share or get any of the land sales. It has always been between the city of Lacombe and CUC College. So I don't understand where this confusion comes from. And like I said, I didn't see anybody missing from any of the meetings that we had with regards to this discussion. So as far as the agreement, where it's at now, we're just waiting for some signatures and for it to come back. From there, we can sit down and look at the actual development, the actual work. No, we were never ever going to do the actual hands-on work. Never. We were going to tender that out, which is still the process. So the process which is underway at this moment in time fits exactly to what the agreement was laid out for it to be. So myself, I don't understand the confusion, or like I said, nobody was missing from any of those meetings either. Councillor Kite?
Further to Councillor Creasy's comment, the reason I opposed the amendment was that it is more work to take it out and then put it back in, not just to leave it and not use the money if we don't need it, depending on whatever comes out from the discussions with CUC.
Any discussion on any part of the budget or further discussion where we're at? Councillor Creasy?
Thanks, Mayor Christie. On Department 32, Roads and Streets, note number 4, a recent addition, or I'm sorry, this isn't a recent addition, this was an ongoing one. It says that it includes the legal cost of acquisition of land extension for 34th Street. And if you look at the numbers themselves, you can circle that part, there we are, is $163,000. So, am I to glean from that work there that is supposed to take care of the land purchases and all the legal costs?
Michael?
The budget before you right now includes just the design engineering as well as the ongoing legal. It does not include anything with regards to actual land acquisition. Should those things come, that'll have to come back to council.
Okay, so what's the purpose of it listed under land then?
It's still part of the chunk of that still related to land, some of it's related to the engineering structure part of it itself.
Okay, but so then that amount right now then is for the engineering and the legal costs to date, not the total legal cost.
No.
Thank you.
Norma?
Yes, to Councillor Creasy, at this particular juncture, the total legal costs are unknown, Councillor Creasy. Until we have that number, we won't be able to present it to council.
I wasn't sure if anybody else had any others, so I did have one more.
Yep,
Go ahead. Different. Thanks, Mayor Christie. For the, this is the one I referred to first off as the new addition. For the Bruns Pond storm main line, which would appear on Department 37, storm sewer. I don't believe there is page numbers actually, is there? Oh, there you go. One of my old eyes, page 8 actually. My arms aren't long enough. So, when we first discussed this, the $2.5 million, which unfortunately, but if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. The part that I thought was odd, I was under the impression that this was to take care of the stormwater from Bruns Pond through to Wolf Creek. And now I see on the map it takes it just to Highway 2A. Well, taking it part way isn't going to do much good for running water out. I'm just curious how that fits in with.
Michael?
It's, once it crosses Highway 2A, it actually turns into an open ditch. And we're hoping to use the existing right-of-way ditch along that right-of-way. Again, this is best guess till we actually go out and do design out in that part of the area, and where the other challenge is we don't know is where we're going to be allowed to cross rail line. If we're crossing further north, this cost is going to go up. We'll have to add not only right of way, but we'll be adding more pipe on the other side of the rail line as well.
And thank you for that, Michael. I fully appreciate that. I guess that was my point, is putting a 1 meter, was it 900 millimeter line, heaven forbid it actually gets used to capacity through an open ditch through the middle of the city, is going to be questionable, is it not? That's a lot of water. I guess I just wanted to make sure. As a side note to this one, because it is $2.5 million and a substantial investment in infrastructure that obviously needs it, did we at least pursue the idea of boring this section?
No, too big.
Can you clarify what that means?
Actually, it isn't too big. so I would like for us to look into it at least to have the option for the time it'll take to see that it can be done, because it isn't too big in diameter, too big in length either, actually. And I would like to at least just have some costs, and I don't know the costs, but I would like to at least say that we pursued the options.
Norma?
To Councillor Creasy, certainly we can go back and ask for more information on that, Councillor Creasy. However, the information that's come forward are recommendations that have been provided by Stantec Consulting, of course, in terms of doing field surveys, site surveys, and coming back with what they feel is the optimum or the most appropriate remedial action. But certainly we can go back and ask for that information, yes.
Thank you very much, Norma, I appreciate that. And it very well may come back being it cost 10 times as much to bore and sleeve it. I have no idea, but it can certainly be done. And given that you don't have to repair the substructure and the pavement and all the rest of it, I think we at least should check into it, because there is some open areas there that are ideally suited to it, given the road that's going on. So I mean, we could do it without destroying the streets, is all I'm getting at. And I just want to know the cost differences, because I don't know what they are.
Councillor Foster?
Thanks, Mayor Christie. Grant, sorry, I'm not sure what you were asking for, and with your technical experience, it's kind of nice to know that there's maybe some potential options, but I didn't have a clue what you were talking about there. Can you explain what the boring? I mean, I understand what boring is if I heard you're right, the terminology, but I think what I heard before was we weren't replacing the 600 millimeter line, we were adding a 1200 meter line. Even though it says replace, I think the intention is to have that there as a backup while we're putting in the new line. Is that, I think that was what, but anyway.
Norma?
Just for clarification, what's proposed is that a new 1200 millimeter line go in. The existing 600 millimeter line will stay in place, providing it hasn't deteriorated to the point where it needs to be replaced.
And then so therefore to Grant, if you could.
Keep in mind, I'm certainly not an expert in sleeving. Basically, you dig a hole at each end of where you want to go, bore a hole underneath of the street, so you're not destroying the street and all the rest, and the substructure and all the rest of it, and pull a pipe through like you pushing a piece of a straw through an ice cream cone, I don't know, kind of a thing. Exactly the same way that the regional water line was done for a portion through the city and underneath the railway and that kind of thing. Exact same way.
Councillor Connick?
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I didn't, I'm glad Councillor Creasy brought this up, because I didn't catch it here, but the storm pond expansion, you say construction to begin in fall 2012 once pond freezes. I thought we might start that now, or is that impossible? So we have to go through another rainy season yet before we expand that pond, is that?
A couple of items that have to be done that is designated an environmental reserve, so you cannot just go in and rip up an ER. We'll actually have to look at changing that to a public utility lot, because its sole purpose is as a storm pond. And so yeah, that's going to take, by the time we get that done, it'll be summer and we'll be in the winter. So.
The other consideration is we do not have detailed design plans on this work, and that's going to take some time to prepare those as well.
Councillor Creasy?
Thanks, Mayor Christie. I guess with respect to the pond, the one thing that stands on my mind that Engineer Gowdy referred to, that it was going to be lined, and I guess that's one thing that I found a little questionable, and I forgot to ask at the time. Given that those are extremely slippery and whatnot, and with children in the area, I think we need to be very aware that that's a significant potential safety issue. Hence the reason we don't allow public around the lagoons, whatnot, because they're lined with those plastic liners and they are nearly impossible to get out of. So I mean, there again, I realize we don't have the engineering in place, but certainly not forget about that when it's time to do so.